All right, good to see you. Good to be. Here we are, episode 44 of the Vibe Union podcast.
44 already, holy shit.
Can you believe we made it this far?
No,
I wish you were here from the very start, because you present well on the video. You're a content creator. You get it. All the different mediums.
Flattered.
How it all matters.
Actually, I started my career as a podcaster first before I moved on to like YouTube. I'm just kind of like, it's just adding a camera in front of me, so
yes,
it's second nature.
For those who don't know, we're talking with RC, is it Waldun?
Yeah, Waldun, yeah.
AKA Robin, author, poet, multidisciplinary, creative of sorts. So firstly, before we jump into whatever it is they're about to talk about, which is currently unknown, but welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming on board.
Thanks for having me.
Just a quick vibe check. How are we doing today?
Pretty good. Got a few drinks in, ready to perform at this Talking Blue event.
So it's before 7 o'clock, or already got a couple drinks in. Is this a continuation of the destructive path of the creative that you've chosen?
Well, I'm trying to bring myself back in. That's why I moved out of the city recently.
Right.
Yeah.
Cheers, by the way, for country moves or whatever you've done.
Suburban moves. So now I'm like mowing the lawn and like taking care of the laundry, trying to hang everything up.
You're looking up at the neighbors with glass clippings in their hair.
Yeah, exactly. Just like say hi. I'm mowing my lawn here. Going for a walk near the beach,
Close to a beach.
Yeah, Cheltenham.
Oh, yeah. Cheltenham, nice. He gave away the suburb.
Ooh.
Hi, Roland. I'm kidding.
Secret location.
All right, before we dig even deeper into it, a bit of housekeeping and just general grounding. The best way to kind of ground and acknowledge what we're doing here is acknowledge the ground and the sacred space that we're recording and producing on. So I think for the combination of us between Cheltenham and Moonee Ponds, we're on the land of a combination of the Boonwurrung and the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So I'd like to acknowledge that they're on their land, acknowledge elders past, present and emerging, and also note that sovereignty wasn't ceded, history has been deleted, and we should certainly hold gratitude and some awareness for what we're currently on right now.
Totally.
You feeling that, Robin?
Amen.
Amen. Here it is. So... one of Vibe Union's specialties is putting on Talking Blue, and right here, right now, we're out front of Blue Bar.
That's it.
On Chapel Street.
Sacred location.
We're here with our headlining poet, featuring poet Robin right here next to us. What are you here to do tonight? What does a headline spot at a poetry night even mean or include? It
includes, because my work is a little different from because Jaden did his a wonderful poem last week about snails, escargot, and then this wonderful little piece about how Melbourne community, the poet community, should be like this grand vision of we're not New York, we're not San Francisco, but we're just like local community. We're doing our own thing.
For those people who don't know, Robin and a few other people have started literally a poetry gang, and it's a little bit worrying because it's not something that you often see. A crew of creatives who are armed literally with pens and sharp minds, and I think that's kind of wild. So after you kind of talk about what you're going to be doing for headlining, I'd love for you to talk about
the Grave Circle.
The circle. So please go ahead.
So my work is a little different from Jaden's because Jaden's poems has this rhythm of introspection. Okay. It has this rhythm of man, I'm digging really deep into my heart. But for me, I'm kind of I don't know. I'm a little more kind of I don't have that same kind of self-awareness. So my attention is more directed outwards. So I tend to look at stuff and I tend to draw conclusions from certain things. So my work slowly morphed away from introspective poems to, should I say, social criticism.
So it's a bit more methodical than feeling your way through in a way.
Yeah, completely. It's a little more, should I say, it's a little colder than poems. So they call
a little
it
colder than poems.
So
colder. Do you mean just by cutting through with observation?
Cutting through dry observation, dry humor, and I think humor is a really great way to get things to people. So I think mixing those two together comprise what I'm going to read out tonight.
Right. Yeah. So you capture things in a bit more of a maybe a critical or cold approach, but then you kind of remix it and repurpose those observations to people through humor.
Through humor.
That's the approach.
That's the approach. Yeah.
Interesting.
And also, I think for me, it's also a safety mechanism because I'm the kind of person that gets really up in his head a lot.
Yeah.
But then, if there's this method for us to relate our stories in a way that's, I got some distance from this. But then this looks like a comedy piece. everything becomes comedy eventually. You go through something, your car breaks down, or like something horrible happened to you. A few years later, when you write about it, it just sounds like the funniest thing you've ever read.
Yeah, that is quite interesting. Even if it's a death in your family, what's probably going to happen years down the line is you'll kind of refer to this story, which was like the funny, memorable moment that represented that person, and you turn that, that tragedy through time into a comedy. And it's a weird thing, but it seems to be how we've been dealing with suffering for a very long time.
That's it.
So you're in the business of dealing with suffering.
That's it.
Okay.
And I do suffer a lot.
I appreciate you saying that. I suffer a lot myself. This is a human experience. So far, you're doing very well to be somewhat open and vulnerable.
Vulnerability for me had always been an issue, but
hasn't been an issue. Okay.
Because I'm an open book. I told Jaden about the story of me walking in and my uncle squatting on the toilet, that kind of stuff, and just I am completely open to telling whatever stories. But the thing is,
did that fall into the category of tragedy or comedy in that moment for you?
Both.
Very good.
Yeah. No one walks into the toilet just once in a while. Just man, my uncle's in there, and then he doesn't squat on the toilet in a sense of a normal toilet you would sit on the toilet.
Yeah.
And you would shitting the toilet while sitting.
Yeah, common ideas in the West.
But but then he had a way of jumping over the toilet and squatting on top of the toilet seat because he was a germaphobe.
So his ass is facing the door?
Yeah.
Yeah,
basically.
Wild. That seems seems like a lowering of defenses.
No,
at that
as a
point.
6-year-old, that was a traumatic memory.
Yeah, right.
So that turned into humor in the most natural way possible.
Now you're questioning, have you been shitting the wrong way your whole life?
Exactly.
Or up until that point?
Yeah, that's
Who taught you what and why?
That's it.
Holy heck. What a conundrum.
It's my first existential crisis. Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of pivoting back to kind of the circles that you roll with. And to tie that in, if you could do a bit of maybe a commentary in the state of the poem scene in Melbourne, and who you're running with and where you're going to.
Sure. So this whole shebang started when I first met Jay. He's now in London doing his own thing.
Yeah.
But Jaden, Jay, and I met basically back in January, and the three of us just sort of kicked off.
January 2021.
2021.
Yeah.
Not this January.
Not just the other month.
No.
Yeah, very good.
When everything was happening, rapid antigen tests. But, Yeah, we met January last year, and we just sort of kicked it off. And then Jay had this grand idea of building a local community. But then he's like, my visa's going to expire in 3 months. So what he basically said was look, I'm going to be the guy who starts something, you guys are going to finish it. And then he left without a trace. Meanwhile, we wrote a book called There's a Tale to the City. And then that was sort of this mixing of poetry, narrative, a little bit of humor in there, and observational writing into this wonderful little book. Not little book, but wonderful. Just this, the size is very little, but the amount that we packed into this book was just so Herculean. I couldn't imagine finishing that book in how many weeks was it? 3 weeks? Many weeks, yeah. But we basically condensed a novel writing process down to from January, we started writing it in April.
Right.
And then we published it near the end of the year. So very condensed sort of novel writing, critiquing, editing session. So we ended up with this book. And then he hopped on a plane and he got out of here. And then Jaden and I were like, what the hell are we going to do next? So then Jaden had this idea to start a page called The Grave Circle. So we spent a night over Instagram chat, back and forth. We consider so many names, even...
The Grave Circle.
The Grave Circle. So The Grave Street is a famous street near Flinders Street Station. Sticky Institute is, in the basement, and then there's a train station there, and then the Grave Street is basically this beautiful little street full of cafes and stuff. So I think this is a location of culture. This is the location where everyone gets to bring everyone together. So we started a Grave Circle, and then we assigned different roles. I'm more of I'm really good at back-end stuff, because social media marketing is one of the things, besides writing and besides all of this stuff, it's another thing that I'm quite proficient at.
Right.
I know how to get to people and then use imageries. But now I'm just basically a photographer of this entire circle. And on the side, we're planning to roll out more zines and roll out more pieces of writing. So basically include as many people as possible in this project.
So the Grave Circle, who includes yourself, Jaden, who's across from us right now, on that camera. There we go. There it is. Who else is in the fold?
There's a few of them coming tonight.
There's a few of them coming.
A few coming tonight?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Is it a kind of thing where it's like a malleable kind of expanding, contracting kind of circle? People will come in and out. Is that kind of might be what happened?
At first, we made the mistake of inviting too many people in at once. And
you can't have the gang too big to start off with, right?
No, we ended up with over a dozen people, and then some drama happened at like the New Year's party, and I'm just kind of like, after that, we're like, no, we're not inviting as many people here as possible.
Yeah, you know, if you put a bunch of creatives at a New Year's party, there's going to be something that happens, to tell you that.
Yep. Temperamental people for sure.
Right, temperamental, emotional, human people.
Human people.
Right?
Yeah, that's it. But
okay, cool.
I think we're still in the building stage, but so far, we're still getting the pieces together.
Okay, and the objectives are zines, hitting poetry nights, just going out and about and kind of encouraging each other to keep doing the thing.
Also critique circles is very important. Yeah.
Right. Cool. So yeah, you can't just have a whole lot of yes people around.
No.
It has to be like, look, I like you as a person, but if we're talking about this piece here, this is how I'm kind of seeing it.
Exactly right.
Playing out. Yeah, cool. So when it comes to the state of poetry in Melbourne, what is the array of nights that you've been to? Like, you know, what kind of nights are happening here in Melbourne? Obviously, you know, you can kind of finish with Talking Blue at Blue Bar right here, but what else is out there?
I've been to a few. There's another one organized by, like, my friend Ria and her band of people. I forgot the name, but they host these quite official readings, and then the topics dealt with a lot of kind of like, should I say, minority experiences?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that happening there, but I haven't been around much, I have to say. So my brain is very much like stuck in building Jaden's Circle and then getting involved with the Vibe Union and Talking Blue. But there are a lot of these great corners I'd love to go to. Also, Drunken Poets Pub.
Yep,
and then
Drunken
there's
Poets.
Another. And I think it's partly my fault that I haven't done much of this exploring just yet, but Talking Blue so far seems to be like the best place to be.
Right.
Yeah.
What are you looking for in an ideal kind of poetry night experience? You know, somebody who is both delivering and being part of the audience as well.
For me, it's just about working up the courage to go up there and read something. Like,
so a space that kind of induces people to be somewhat courageous about
sharing their words. Courageous about putting their words in on a page, because like reading something and writing something, there's two completely different experiences. And because sometimes a piece of writing on a page doesn't translate into a real kind of like your words don't mean shit unless it touches people, and you can't really see that unless you read it out loud. So that's why one of my favorite writers, David Sedaris, talked about, if you write a story, he's a comedy writer, so if you write a story, then make sure that you read it out on stage at some point so you can gauge direct reaction from people. Otherwise, you're just some lonely, sad person in a basement just writing, thinking he's the greatest in the world. But I think that direct feedback is just so important for me. Yeah.
And it doesn't have to come from people explicitly critiquing you or your work. It actually just comes from, you know, the energy in the room, which is like this flowing of attention.
That's it.
And if people, how willing people are to give you that attention, if they are willing to give you that attention. Hopefully an indication that you're on the right track, or kind of, you know, speaking.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because writing and sharing writing, that's a very human experience if you boil it all down.
Well, I mean, all of our history is storytelling, mostly through, you know, the spoken word. And campfires, exactly right. Yeah. Which has been the initial both mind and stomach warmer.
And also it prevents people from going too far up their ass, diving into academia, analyzing the shit out of one sentence. At the end of the day, no one wants to read that book anymore.
Yeah. So I guess like going to one of these nights like Talking Blue is like, okay, here's the human experience, both from the artist and the audience.
That's it.
And also enables... What I like about poetry nights generally, if it's done right, is like the melding and the mixing of everyone in that space before and after readings.
Completely. Networking. Completely.
Or even just like actual conversations, right? Like it can be done without the intent of like, we can make something in the future. It can just be like, just basking in the moment, just sitting in the moment.
That was a great piece. Thank you for reading that out loud.
Right.
And it really brains to, because writing's a hard thing to do. If you ever try to write yourself, it is like banging your head against a keyboard for like hours on end.
Yeah.
And if you don't have people who understand what that's like. It's like the same with being a YouTuber. It's like not a lot of people do this professionally.
It's not an intuitive task
not
or
a very
thing to
intuitive
do.
thing. So if you lack that community to tell you like, hey, what you're doing is right, you're going to go nuts real quick.
Right.
So having a community there, in a sense, is a safety sort of like mechanism to keep you, like, prevent you from going insane, so to speak.
Right. Which is probably something which holds a lot of value for, I guess, some creatives who are a bit more, not volatile, but a bit more unpredictable, a little bit more like on the edge of understanding themselves and everything around them, because they explore it pretty far and it can kind of put them in danger. So it needs like this other parameter of like a social circle to kind of check and make that feel good.
Hey, here's the main guy.
We just got Wrath on set, everybody.
Wrath on set.
Oh, damn. There it
What's
is.
Going
there
on?
it is. I did write down 2 questions here.
Sure.
We did delve into one, but I was watching one of your YouTube videos. You've got a great YouTube channel, by the way.
Thank you.
I think, obviously, I haven't gone back too far because we all know the danger of that. But it seems like you've come into this nice cross-section or intersection of good clean production and, like, some clear, thoughtful content.
Yeah.
And it's very nice.
Thank you.
There was one where you were reviewing... I think you were talking about the experience of cleaning your apartment.
That's it.
Connecting that with making room for art in that space. But there was this part where you were kind of talking about... Actually, no, maybe it was a different video on autobiographies. Anyway, I guess the question is, there was a point where you were exploring the importance of making a mess of yourself in your life by going out there in the world to find out, you know, who you are, to explore yourself. And when you go ahead and read other autobiographies or biographies, you kind of are able to sample other masks or ways of other formats of living.
Completely.
And then by simulating or testing them out in the real world, and either failing that experience or doing fine with it, is a cool way to recreate yourself. I guess the actual question would be, what is the importance of making a mess in the world to understand yourself?
Oh man, it's so important.
Right.
So I started, because I came from a pretty like academic sort of background. Like,
we can tell. I'm kidding.
So that's how I started like making sense of reality. That was like my default mode. I'm like, okay, this shit happened. Let me go read an essay by James Baldwin on something. Or like, this thing happened. Oh, that book right there that I have on my shelf, that's going to answer my question. So over time, you have this like, you want to map out reality before you've actually lived through anything.
It's just playing it safe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with like reading romance novels. You know, someone read dozens of romance novels, and you ask them how many relationships have you, and it's just like, oh, none. You know, and they set up all these ridiculous expectations of certain things. So life to them becomes like this sculpture of like all the books that they've read, all the pieces that they've like ingested, all the philosophical theories that they've projected onto the world without realizing that, hey, all those theories they came from reality.
From the lived experience.
They came from the lived experience and the synthesis of that experience, and now here's this piece of living philosophy.
Right, and they didn't know what they knew in hindsight.
No.
Wait, no, I think the way you framed it was, you know, in retrospect. Like, you can't build your history from retrospect from behind, you know.
Otherwise, you're just going to remain the same idiot your entire life if you already set your way out. It's just like, I'm going to become this in 20 years. And you read all the books that's going to prepare you to become that in 20 years. But then, hey, what happens? You fall in love. What happens? Someone punches you in the face. What happens? You see your uncle, you know, sticking his ass out at you, squatting on the toilet.
Yeah.
It shatters that worldview that you used to have. And when that gets shattered, that experience is not pleasant. So right now I'm making a very deliberate effort to like treat literature as literally what it is. It's just lived experience of other people. But then the central experience still has to come back here.
Right. Yeah. It's not necessarily a map of how to be and live in the world.
No.
There's certainly maybe some pointers or indicators or things to take away from, but at the end of the day, you got to go out there and literally fuck up, literally put yourself
look like
on
an
the
idiot.
line, look like an idiot.
That's it.
Discover what is wrong through doing what is wrong before you can establish that, claim it.
Before you can clean a mess up. So next time you're heading to the same situation, you're like, I'm smarter than this now. I know what to look for. I know how not to get into trouble this time.
Yeah, because you've embodied this experience. You've embodied the experience of like the horrible feeling of fucking up.
That's it.
And then like I guess all the thoughts that kind of are sparked from that experience, and then they're putting yourself back together. Robin, how many times do we have to destroy ourselves to understand who we are? That's a difficult question.
Man, numerous times.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like for me, like that's why comedy and humor writing appeals to me so much, just because you can safely say to yourself, one day this is going to be funny. Why? I've destroyed myself this time, and I've regrouped myself. So I'm smarter now, but in retrospect, writing's a form of therapy, I feel like, especially comedy writing. It's seeking joy and misfortune, and then seeking the funny out of like the uncanny, so to speak. And then you have this entire process of like, I don't care how many times. What's up, Saskia?
We got Saskia on set.
Exactly. So I don't care how many times I get screwed over. Next time, I feel like over time you start to develop like this emotional tolerance for misfortunes. And then at that point, it's basically, you're the village idiot, but that's just the best way to live because you got nothing to lose. Yeah, and
people see you for you.
That's it.
The person who's willing to be out there to be seen doing the thing.
I've done a ton of stupid things in my career.
Yeah.
And in terms of romance and in terms of like so many things that I will not go into. But those are some of the best moments that I can reflect on and be like, in fact, the story that I'm going to read out tonight is about a failed Bumble date. So
amazing.
So through that experience, mingle that with humor. You can break yourself down as many times as possible. Just at the end of the day, remember, everything becomes funny eventually.
Everything becomes funny eventually.
Yeah.
It's great words. Do you feel like we're, as people, we're often too tied to our identity, and that stops us from having these shattering experiences?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So,
how would one approach slowly deviating from that path of being too tied to like one's own identity?
Get a drink. Hang out with your friends.
Because,
I have a motto, which is like, I just wrote up this article for my blog recently, which talks about like creating art for other people. So I dressed up as Andy Warhol for my 21st birthday, and I went to a pub, and I took my Polaroid, and I put on this kind of like Andy Warhol voice. I'm like, hey guys, my name's Andy, can I take your portraits? Everyone went berserk.
Wow,
and it was like, yeah, we need to keep this going. What's going on? All good.
Oh, you're all right there. Sorry to interrupt.
We got Jason here, our host from Talking Blue. Go on, put your head in there.
Hello.
Hey.
Sorry,
thanks, mate.
All good. Yeah, so I did that.
Good, how are you?
And that entire experience, just like, that's something that I would never do. You know, people see me as the serious guy at the cafe, sitting down reading a book. But sometimes, just once in a while, just be kind of stupid. Step outside of yourself. Grab a drink.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. So, I guess what you're trying to say without encouraging people to become alcoholic in nature.
Not alcoholics.
is to, I guess the way to kind of melt your identity a little bit is to mix it with other people's, right? Like mix it with other people's thoughts, ideas, listen to what they
just another
have to say.
thread of thought from that article, which is like, the ending line for that article is that when I get far too up my ass, that's my cue to call someone to keep me in check. Because man, if you're a creative, you go in your fucking head a lot.
Yeah,
you get lost and there's like a labyrinth in there, and then you start thinking in distorted ways, and you think that's reality. But then you go for a walk outside, you talk to a convenience store clerk, you go to a McDonald's getting yelled by a bunch of idiots, and then you step on a wrong lift, and you have a conversation with a random person. That rebalances your perception of reality, like corrects out distortion. And then, I find calling people such an important exercise, you know.
Right. Because, you're not only giving yourself an opportunity to be checked, but you're also extending the line of communication to somebody else who needs that exact same experience.
That's it.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow. I really like that. So currently, if you just want to tell us, Robin, what you're currently working on and what you're looking to do in the not-too-distant future.
Current work, I'm still putting a lot of thought into the video essays. That's my main line of work, video essays on YouTube. But it shifted recently from literature slowly into exploration of the artistic process in general. So I want to understand what makes people click in artistic work. I want to like understand what it means to be an artist.
So you're speaking more to creatives in the sense. Yeah,
creatives in general.
Yeah.
And what I'm currently working on is actually this little book of like, so there's a scrapbook project which I recently started. These are very pithy, short blog posts on what it means to be creative, mixing with humor, and then start auto usual song and dance.
Yeah.
But then that alongside this little essay collection that I'm working on, I don't know where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sort of like this Friend Leibowitz. So there's a piece in there about the new scooters in Melbourne, and they're a pain in the ass. So I'm really trying to lean into that, observing reality through, just trying to convey things through humor and through observation, and encourage people to think a little deeper about reality. Yeah.
Cool. And what are some upcoming projects that we could look forward to, maybe you releasing or having done in the next few months?
Next few months? Wow, that's a tight timeline.
Yes, it is. I can be a bit more lenient if that works for you.
Yeah, that's all.
How about
good.
6 months?
6 months.
How about this year? What are you looking to complete this year?
Complete a book of essays,
Yeah,
social criticisms.
Yeah.
Because I've already done so much stuff. I released 2 courses on Skillshare recently, and then I made so many videos on YouTube, and then just started writing on my blog like nonstop.
Yeah.
But my current project is actually trying to learn more about fashion design.
Yeah,
and then extend into that sort of, should I say, the polymath sort of idea, multidisciplinary, and seek inspiration from multiple fields of discipline.
Yeah, let them feed each other.
So right now I'm just trying to learn as much as I can about the fashion industry.
Yeah.
And that's something very close and personal to me. So that is a project that's like my personal project, but the main thing currently is still building my cinematography skills and should I say, storytelling skills alongside scrapbook posts into this exploration video essays on creativity. That's
cool.
The main thing. Yeah.
That's exciting. It sounds like you've got a lot of work cut out for you.
So much work.
It sounds like you're somewhat diligent and conscientious, and you've got some kind of routine and discipline in your life to make things happen. Workaholic, right?
Yeah.
So from 12 midday to 12 midnight, you're pumping.
4 in the morning.
To 4 in the morning. Yeah. Right, all right. Cool. One last thing, Robin. We truly appreciate you and your time.
No problem.
People here
Thanks
and they're coming around. You know, it looks like everyone's entering the spot. So socializing is calling. But finally, what would you say to anyone who hasn't done, who's written a little bit but hasn't, gone to a spoken word or poetry night? What would you tell them to do to prepare or to get ready for a night like Talking Blue, and also encourage them to come to Talking Blue?
Completely. First step, get out of your ass.
Yeah.
If you get too far up your ass, because I've met people, they've written 2 short stories a year, and they're like, these are my 2 best stories, and I read them, and I feel bad about telling them these are not that good. These are simply lacking. I don't follow the storyline.
It's a problem of just running the numbers, right?
Exactly. And it's just like, you treat your art so seriously that you don't see how the only way to get better is to keep doing it. So, hello, Ada. Yeah, she's reading her first piece tonight.
Oh,
yeah,
awesome. How you going there?
Yeah, so first step, get out of your ass.
Yeah.
And then just write as much as possible. And I'm sure writing's tough for everyone, but you just kind of have to disregard the craft, disregard what you've read about craft, and just put whatever it is on a page, because over time it's like a numbers game. If you give a monkey a typewriter, 120 hours later they're going to end up writing a novel that's intelligible.
Right.
You're a human being. You can write words if you know how to write.
Yeah, you just got to
give yourself that pure numbers game, and then without attaching yourself too much to your art. I mean, my art and I were totally separate.
Right.
That safe psychological distance that you have to establish between yourself and art. Otherwise, you'll go nuts real quickly. So first step, get out of your ass.
Yeah.
Just put whatever. Work on craft instead of inspiration. Because no lighting really strikes you. Before I work on a video, I never go like, oh my god, I'm so inspired to make this video. It's always like, shit. You have to sit down, sit in front of the camera, warm yourself up, talk, and then you have to spend the next 5 hours editing. So it's just work at the end of the day. Second, share whatever. Show your work. Show your work to people. Make sure that your work connects a chord. Don't aim for some grand artistic vision of this is going to be a piece of art fiction, because if your words don't touch people, I don't think there's much point to it.
Yeah, and and initially maybe your words won't, but if you work at it, maybe they will, right? Through
Numbers
that,
game.
through creating that feedback loop between you and the people around you.
Just come to Talking Blue, right?
Every fortnight, but yes.
Oh, right. Sorry,
You're
every
all
fortnight,
good.
come to Talking Blue.
Yeah.
Just keep working at it, keep writing, keep reading it out, keep vibe checking with the crowd.
Yes.
Over time, you're going to find out what really clicks for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said. Robin, thank you so much for joining us again
problem.
on the podcast. Where can people find you and all things that are you?
Instagram, RC Waldun.
Yep.
Recently started a photography account.
Yep.
RC Waldun _.
Ah, cool. Very cool.
Photos.
Yep.
And just the YouTube channel. Just search RC Waldun on YouTube.
Perfect.
And then there's going to be auto video essays. Yeah.
Brilliant. Love your work. I love your insights. We'll most likely, and by most likely I mean definitely, have you back, because you are such an easy and good podcast guest. You get it. You get how to run a conversation. Everybody, this has been episode 44 of the Vibe Union podcast. You can catch us on all major platforms in terms of this podcast, but also check out our socials for all upcoming events. On a 2-month rotation, we've got 5 events happening, so keep in touch.
Keep in touch.
Big ups and fucking peace in the multiverse.
Peace.